Welcome, everybody. This is the long-awaited World War III, Week 2, European Theater. If you're new to my channel, which I have a lot of new subscribers after my prior video, which was focused specifically on Israel, that's a part of this scenario. So you're going to see that play out in this scenario. I was posting that early as kind of a slice as I continue to work on this. So if you haven't been following along with the scenario in large, I'm going to fill you in on what's happened up to this point. I'll pull up my attack plans. And so the first part of this was basically week 1 of a nuclear escalation that turns into World War III across multiple theaters and domains. It starts, of course, there's already been heightened tensions in the real world currently. We see it, in the Middle East. We see it in Ukraine. We see it potentially in the South China Sea, which we see some escalation already there, but it could easily start to escalate. This starts over a North Korean accidental detonation over Tokyo. They were meant to be a show of force. There was, this is taking place September 7th, 2024. Things are heating up. Things are heating up between China and Taiwan. Things are heating up between the United States and China, Philippines and China, North Korea and South Korea. Everybody involved. As a show of force, they accidentally detonate over Tokyo. U.S. makes a decision to attempt to eliminate North Korean nuclear and chemical sites utilizing low-yield nuclear weapons. The Chinese get involved and use this as an excuse to take out the THAAD battery in South Korea. They've never been particularly happy. If you're not aware what the THAAD battery is, that is a ballistic missile defense system designed to take out medium and intermediate range ballistic missiles in their terminal phase. North Korea responds with their few surviving nuclear weapons targeting U.S. bases in northern South Korea, as well as detonating one over Seoul. While this is going on, Russia and the United States have a conflict that ends up being a shooting match between naval vessels in the Black Sea. U.S. responds, sinking several Russian naval ships. Concurrent to this, U.S. responds to China with conventional naval strikes from where they launched that nuclear-tipped ballistic missile. Russia responds to the sinking of their naval vessels by detonating a low-yield nuclear warhead over the Black Sea. U.S. responds to that with conventional airstrikes all across the Russian western border. China responds to those conventional strikes on their mainland by detonating a high-altitude nuclear weapon over a relatively depopulated area of Guam. Not causing any casualties. These are shows of force. U.S. responds to that with air-launched nuclear-tipped cruise missiles, taking out numerous Chinese locations and bases along their coast and somewhat inland. Russia responds to those massive conventional strikes along their border by low-yield nuclear strikes against Ukrainian bases in western Ukraine. All through this, they're trying to mitigate continued escalation, but we see that the escalation ladder continues to go up. China responds with their intermediate and medium-range ballistic missiles striking U.S. bases in South Korea, Okinawa, and Guam. Likewise, Russia responds by attempting to, after their tactical nuclear strikes, they also make an attempt to decapitate NATO, taking out their headquarters in Brussels and a few select key bases, NATO bases. China, with escalating tension with India across disputed border, makes some limited nuclear strikes, basically to free up this border so they can focus on their conflict on their eastern border. The U.S. uses sub-launch ballistic missiles in an attempt to decapitate Chinese leadership and take out as many of their nuclear sites as they can. This goes into week 2 now. So we're going to focus. There's already week 2 for the Pacific Theater. You can check out that video. There'll be a link in the description to see how that plays out. Now we're going to focus on strictly on the European theater. After the nuclear attacks on NATO sites, the U.S. utilizes 2 of their Ohio-class ballistic missile subs and target the Russian silos, an attempt to take them out, take out some of their strategic air bases and radar sites. Basically, they're trying to blind Russia and prevent them from being able to strike back with their nuclear missile silos. Russia, at this point, believes they have to launch their silos-based ICBMs or they risk losing them. So, utilizing their new Sarmat missiles, they attempt to take out command and communication sites, including Omaha, Cheyenne Mountain, strategic air bases, and Washington, D.C. They also attempt, with their remaining ICBMs, a large counterforce strike across multiple U.S. bases with a limited amount of counter-value strikes against a couple industrial population targets, including New York City, Los Angeles, and a few other places. Now, mind you, even with the counterforce strikes, there's a lot of bases near cities, so you're going to have a large civilian fallout. Of course, Hawaii and Alaska is heavily targeted. Also, Joint Base in Australia. They likewise do the same, targeting NATO countries, specifically some of the stronger NATO countries, and ones they have border and regional conflicts with. So you see Turkey is targeted, Italy, France, Germany, Poland, borders that countries that border Kaliningrad. So the U.S., knowing that their silos are being targeted, then basically go all in and launch their missiles against targets in Russia, China, and North Korea. Both counterforce and some counter-value. Likewise, due to strikes against France by Russia, France launches their missiles, attempting to take out 2 of their largest cities, as well as targeting Belarus, and also targeting some of their silos, strategic air bases, and mobile launch bases. Now, mind you, some of these have already probably been destroyed or already fired their missiles. The fact is, the targeting is pre-programmed on a lot of this stuff. They're not going to know what's still existing or what's not. This is all taking place very quickly. As these strikes are going on, Israel strikes southern Lebanon due to a buildup of forces. And you have Hezbollah and also Iranian forces doing saturation missile attacks, which have exhausted the Iron Dome missile defense systems. Israel also knows that the United States now and other allies are engaged in a two-front nuclear war, so they're not going to be able to count on any measurable resupply or missile defense in these areas, as these forces are being used in other conflicts. So they make these strikes to basically take out Hezbollah and prevent them from being able to cross over the border. This leads to Arab countries uniting and threatening invasion from multiple sides. So then Israel makes a decision to attack Iran, Lebanon, Syria, and areas along their border, including hitting certain population centers. They do not hit a population center in Jordan, but they do hit along their border to prevent other forces from crossing over, utilizing their shared border with Jordan. Iran responds, said to have the capability to make 3 to 5 kind of more crude weapons. In this scenario, though, we're going to have off a thing that Russia has helped supply them with a limited means that they're able to adapt. So they're going to be able to launch some very low yield warheads to strike in Israel. And that's going to be the end of week 2. So let's go ahead and play this out. Attack plan. Execute all plans. So I'm going to skip forward because it's going to have to go through all the plans from day 1. So it's going to go for 26 hours. Okay. So let's take a look at the casualties now, the end of week 1. Like I said, if you didn't see that video, check out the link in the description and watch that. Every time you run this, the casualties are going to be a little bit different, but just give you a broad overview. They've lost over 1.7 million Chinese, 1.1 million Japanese, 1.1 million South Koreans, 320,000 North Koreans. Overall, almost 5 million casualties worldwide so far. I'm going to spend too much time on a breakdown, but let's go ahead and continue. And so we're now 2 p.m., day 2, and we're going to see the U.S. attempt to take out Russian silos and radar sites. And then likewise, let me slow this down a little bit. So you see some Russian missile defenses that are ringing Moscow, trying to intercept. Those are actually nuclear missiles. So Russia has a ballistic missile defense system utilizing nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons are very effective at taking out and destroying incoming nuclear weapons. So you see U.S. has targeted their silo sites. Their silos are still able to fire off missiles. Some are being destroyed, but some are being able to fire. We see we still got these coming over here to strike these sites, which are taking longer. The subs are positioned over here, so they're able to strike these western sites faster. So these are going to have a much better capability of being able to launch. So what we're going to do is we're going to end up shifting and looking at what's going to coming to the United States. So let's do that. Let's speed this up a little bit. The United States is now launching their weapons, of course, too. So some of the first weapons of the Russians are starting to come in. You have some U.S. missile defenses trying to engage the incoming with mixed success. Now keep in mind, you're also going to have Chinese nuclear ICBMs coming in and hitting the United States too. So this isn't going to all be Russians. Speed this up a little bit. Okay. Pause there. Unfortunately, I think the U.S. ones have already struck against most of Russia. So what I'll do is I'll film a second one and be able to flip to that here. Okay, I'm going to cut in real fast because we can only look at either the Russian strikes on the U.S. or the U.S. strikes on Russia. So I'm going to show you the U.S. strikes on Russia now. So do this real quick and then we can flip back to the remainder of the scenario. So we should see them incoming here soon. Man, I got so many missiles flying around and different things executing. This is actually locking up my supercomputer. Got a very top-end rig, and this thing is blitzing it. So, okay. So let's cut back to the regular video now. So you won't end up missing that one. Okay. So let's see where we're at here. We are now at 1509. And so we're going to have the Russian cruise missile attacks. They're a little bit harder to see, but you can see them kind of right here. These are striking NATO sites and command and control sites, also military bases and some population centers. There's some you're going to see coming down to Turkey here, making multiple strikes across the United Kingdom, France, Turkey, Germany. See off in the, well, you're not going to see it because of this wide screen, but I'm seeing the strikes happening against China. Okay, let me pause it here. I don't think, we're at 4:30 right now, and I think the next ones don't come until 5 o'clock, and that's when France launches against Russia. Make sure I'm correct. Yep. Okay. So we're going to see it now. France is launching. Okay. Starting in Kaliningrad, multiple sites across Russia. Okay. So let's go down and then we'll see. Now we're going to take a look at the action going on now in the Mideast. So we're seeing the strikes now against southern Lebanon. And then we'll see the remainder of the Israeli strikes here. Let me go back. See him doing it now. So I have a whole video just on that. So, which you'll see in the description as well if you want to be a zoomed in specialized video just on that aspect of it. And then the final aspect is going to be the Iran is going to launch 4 warheads against Israel. Mind you, Israel's ballistic and missile defense system has been pretty much depleted at this point. So they're very vulnerable as far as missile strikes go. So we see them coming in, and this is really going to be the finale for week 2. We'll do a casualty breakdown. And then at this point, week 3 is going to be basically who's going to rule over the ashes. Not all nuclear forces are depleted. There's still a lot of sub-based missile systems, both for the United States, Russia, and China. The UK has not given the authorization to launch yet. They have held back. France still has 1 nuclear sub. So there's still quite a bit of forces out there, but these are kind of the use it or lose it ones that they pretty much had to make a decision to launch or run the risk of losing them. That's the dangerous part about a limited nuclear war. And you see for the first part of the scenario, it stayed relatively limited. Of course, you say 4.5 million casualties is limited, but this quickly escalates, especially once you start targeting radar and missile silos. Okay, let's look at the casualties. Now, mind you, this is going to have U.S. casualties from Chinese strikes as well as the Russian strikes, so you do have to factor that in. Okay, high level, the 4 countries with the highest casualties at this point: China, 152,000. I'm sorry, 152 million, almost 153 million. Russia, 29 million. United States, 21.2 million. United Kingdom, 3.2 million. That's up to this point. China, obviously, being the largest country population-wise, and some of the most densely packed cities. One of the reasons why they have a much higher casualty rate. Overall, worldwide, 223 million losses so far. And these are just initial losses. This isn't going to count long-term losses. Some other ones that could stand out here, Belarus, 1.9 million. Austria, 20.9 thousand. Canada, 59,000. We talked about China. France, 2.2 million. Egypt, 640,000. Germany, 1.1 million. Guam, 26.9 thousand. Hong Kong, 306,000. India, 642,000. Again, that's part of the Pacific Theater. Please check that video out if you want to see that. Iran, 1.5 million. Israel, 485,000. Italy, 583,000. Japan, 1.4 million. Let's see here. Jordan, 55,000. Kazakhstan, 1,868. Latvia, 188,000, almost 189,000. 92,000 in Lebanon. Lithuania, 141,000. 7 people in Macau. 20,569 in Mexico. 5,934 in Holland. 392,956 in North Korea. 409,000 in Pakistan. 13,397 in Palestine. 516,428 in Poland. 29 million in Russia, we already talked about. South Korea, 1.1 million. 368,000 in Sweden. 664,710 in Syria. 256 people in Taiwan. Turkey, 1.4 million. 375,000 in Ukraine. 3.2 million in the United Kingdom. So that's the breakdown. Let's take a look at some fallout. See some pretty massive fallout across Russia, across some of these countries. These are a little bit lower yield weapons on some of the Russian strikes against NATO. China, quite a bit of fallout, and these are very densely populated areas. A lot of the fallout that happened in North Korea landed across areas not as populated. A little bit in Australia. Let's look at the United States. Yeah, quite a bit. So there's a lot of different things that can factor into fallout. The way the wind's pattern, wind speed, the height you detonate at, but that gives you a rough idea there. So again, be on the lookout for week 3. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, turn on the bell notification to receive the notifications when I put out a new video. I try to post something at least once a week that's specific to a nuclear war simulation, but I also do other videos as well. So hope everybody appreciates this, and thank you.